Yeah, thank you so much. I'm Pooja Chandran,
और मैं निष्ठा रेलन,
and we welcome you to the day 2 of the Commons Convening 2024. Yesterday, we engaged deeply with the connections that link us to our commons and the broader systems they operate within. This helped us define and refine the ambitions that we have around our commons. We got a glimpse of how communities care and manage their shared resources. We heard from various presenters, as well as you, the audience, on diverse topics such as community forestry, gender, data and technology, area-based planning, climate action, and water governance. All these discussions served as a rich source of inspiration as well as insights into the role that commons can play in SDG acceleration. Old connections were strengthened and some new ones were formed. Yesterday, we also received a multitude of innovative ideas as well as perspectives from our discussions. These are going to be explored further today. Today is a day to lay a strong foundation for the collaborative work that lies ahead. Today, we take the next step and turn our attention to approaches, the strategies, the methods, as well as the innovations that will turn our shared vision into reality. Today is about building, about taking the connections and weaving them into something larger, something stronger, and something enduring.
कल हमने उन संबंधों पर गहराई से विचार किया जो हमारे कॉमन्स और उनके कार्य क्षेत्रों को जोड़ते हैं। हमने देखा कि समुदाय अपने कॉमन्स की देखभाल और प्रबंधन कैसे करते हैं। हमें विभिन्न प्रस्तुतकर्ताओं से सामुदायिक वन प्रबंधन, जेंडर, डेटा और प्रौद्योगिकी, क्षेत्रीय योजना, जलवायु कार्रवाई और जल प्रबंधन जैसे विविध विषयों पर विचार प्राप्त हुए, जो कि एसडीजीज को तेज़ी से आगे बढ़ाने में कॉमन्स की भूमिका पर प्रेरणा के समृद्ध स्रोत थे। पुराने संबंधों को मजबूत किया गया और नए संबंध बनाए गए। इसने हमें आगे के लिए सहयोग संबंधों की बनाने की भी तैयारी में मदद की। आज हम अगले कदम की ओर बढ़ते हुए अपने ध्यान को दृष्टिकोणों यानी पर्सपेक्टिव्स पर केंद्रित करते हैं, उन रणनीतियों, विधियों और नवाचारों पर जो हमारे साझा दृष्टिकोण को वास्तविकता में बदलेंगे। आज का दिन निर्माण के बारे में है, संबंधों को लेकर उन्हें कुछ मजबूत और स्थायी रूप में बुनने के बारे में है।
And we're going to begin the day with a very thought-provoking panel discussion on connecting Samaaj, Sarkaar, Bazaar, a framework that explores the interplay between society, state, and the market. This is going to highlight how their interactions shape the overall health and well-being of our communities and the planet. For this discussion, we warmly welcome and invite Dr. T.M. Thomas Isaac, an eminent economist and politician, as well as the former finance minister of Kerala. Next, we invite Dr. Mekhala Krishnamurthy, Associate Professor of Sociology and Anthropology at the Ashoka University. And next, we invite Dr. Jahnvi Andharia, Director and Research Fellow at the Institute of Social Science Studies Trust. We request everyone to give a big round of applause for our panelists today. And next, we welcome our chair for this session, who will guide the discussion today. For this, we are pleased to welcome Mr. Arun Maira, an author, a thought leader, and the former chairman of the Boston Consulting Group.
इस सत्र के अंत में हम कॉमन ग्राउंड से ईशान अग्रवाल जी से निवेदन करेंगे कि वे हिंदी में एक संक्षिप्त अनुवाद प्रस्तुत करें। अरुण सर, कृपया सत्र की शुरुआत करें।
सबको सुबह सुबह नमस्कार। आई एम सो हैप्पी। अरे हम एक कम हो गए हैं, पीछे आ गई। लाइट एडजस्टमेंट, थैंक यू मेखला। अच्छा, तो कल सुबह से हम बहुत सीख रहे हैं यहाँ, मैं सीख रहा हूँ। कल सुबह सुबह सुदर्शन जी ने या हमारे सामने लोग ऐसे बिठाए जिनसे हमने सुना कि वो आदिवासी लोगों का, खेतवासी लोगों का फ़ायदा कैसे कर रहे हैं। वो भी हैं अभी आदिवासी और खेतवासी, और सब अपने लोगों से जुड़ के सबका फ़ायदा करा रहे हैं। उनके पास सॉल्यूशंस हैं और सॉल्यूशंस इम्प्लीमेंट भी कर रहे हैं। और सुदर्शन जी बहुत धन्यवाद कि आपने उनकी आवाज़ें, उनके ख्याल हमारे सामने आप लाए। फिर दूसरा सेशन था उसके बाद, जिसमें हमारे गवर्नमेंट के लोग थे, जो भी हमारे जो है बैकवर्ड डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स, एस्पिरेशन डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स, स्टेट्स जैसे अरुणाचल जहाँ ट्राइबल लोग बहुत हैं, उनके साथ काम कर रहे हैं, उनका फ़ायदा हो रहा है। और साथ साथ में दो हमारे डेवलपमेंट एक्सपर्ट्स थे, एकेडमिक, जो भी समझा रहे थे बहुत सालों से। वो देख रहे हैं कि कैसे होती है डेवलपमेंट और किस तरीके से होनी चाहिए। और साथ साथ दूसरे सेशन में हम ये भी देख रहे थे कि बहुत कोशिश थी किसी की कि ये सब जो काम हो रहा है ये सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स में कैसे मापा जा सकता है। ये गोल है, वो गोल है, तीसरा गोल है, चौथा गोल है, ये 17 गोल हैं। ये जो काम कर रहे हैं ये 17 गोलों से जोड़ा है कि नहीं जोड़ा है। तो जो एकेडमिक थे वहाँ बहुत एक्सपीरियंस्ड, दोनों ने कहा बाद में कि अभी शायद टाइम आ गया ये सोचने के लिए कि ये गोल्स जो बने हैं इनका फ़ायदा क्या है, मतलब क्या है। आज हम वहीं से शुरू करेंगे। कनेक्शंस कह रहे हैं हम कि जो असली बात है और जो हम मेजर करते हैं, जिसको हम काउंट करते हैं, उसमें कनेक्शन है क्या, उसमें कनेक्शन है क्या। तो आज जगदीश जी ने हमको 3 काम दे दिए हैं, तो आप ज़रा हमको। हाँ जी, नाउ एग्जैक्टली। पहले थोड़ा हिंदी में कह दूंगा और इंग्लिश में, और सब बाकी सब इंग्लिश में जी। हाँ, आई हैव बीन गिवन 3 जॉब्स टू डू। एक तो समझाना सबको कि आज टॉपिक हमारा क्या है। जैसे चेयरमैन होता है ना सेशन, तो उसका थोड़ा टाइम लगता है, 2-3 मिनट। दूसरा, हम सब पैनलिस्ट हैं। पहले हमको पैनलिस्ट की ग्रुप में ही बुलाया था आप साथ के साथ, तो हम भी अपना ख्याल करेंगे, तो थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा, आपको भी टाइम मिलेगा। और तीसरा हमको कहा है कि हम मॉडरेटर हैं कि इन सब से कॉन्वर्सेशन होनी चाहिए। We should have a conversation, and that is why I'll have to speak in English, because I have to ask you questions also. So I'll be doing 3 things together. Chair, speak my views, and ask you a question or questions. So if you'll forgive me, I might take a little longer than you, because I'm going to do 3 in 1. And you're going to speak your mind pretty freely. So, Ji, I'm going to speak in English. So I'm going to begin with a bold statement. There is a complete collapse of global governance. Geopolitical governance is broken. The United Nations is unable to stop the genocidal massacre of women and children in Palestine because the most powerful in the country is unwilling to. Even within the richest and the so-called democratic countries, citizens do not trust their governance systems any longer to govern them fairly, equitably. Global financial systems and global supply chains are breaking down. Countries are harming nature's systems with their ambitions to climb GDP rankings, as we are, which are supposed to be indicators of their level of development. The pressure of economic exploitation is breaking the ability of nature's systems to sustain themselves. Humanity is now facing an existential crisis with depleting freshwater sources degraded soils, and runaway climate change. Powerful nations are empowering their armies with more technologies and artificial intelligence. And the present danger is that more wars in the near future will kill people even faster than climate change will. Do we need more evidence that top-down solutions for global problems have failed? As Albert Einstein or someone else first said, continuing to solve problems with the same way of thinking that has caused them is madness. Let's think scientifically for a moment. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. All of them must be addressed faster. Moreover, none of them can be solved by themselves because they are interlinked with others, as we learnt in the session yesterday morning again. Each of the Sustainable Development Goals is not manifested in the same way everywhere. Problems of environment and climate are not the same in Alaska as in Barbados or in Uttarakhand as in Kerala. Problems of livelihoods are quite different in the slums of New York or in rural Bihar. All problems must be solved locally. And everywhere in the world, at least 7 of the 17 problems of the SDGs must be solved urgently now. At least 7 out of 17, if not all of them. Let's do some mathematics. How many different combinations can there be of 7 problems at a time taken out of 17, the set of 17? 94 million possibilities. Clearly, one-size solutions developed by global climate scientists or global health experts will not fit local realities everywhere. Therefore, science says that we need a new bottom-up paradigm for solving global systemic problems, which the top-down paradigm has clearly failed to do. The scientific solution is local community-led system solutions are the way to solve global systemic problems of inequality, social disharmony, and environmental degradation. The earth on which we all stand is common ground. We must take a new path to realize the promise of our commons, which the established ways of thinking, acting, managing, and governing have sadly converted into the tragedy of the commons. The scaling up of this systemic way of thinking and acting will require an unlearning of the unsystemic ways that have become universal in the ways we organize. Problems are broken up into parts with specialists and resources dedicated for solving each separately, like the SDGs, and solutions in silos harm other parts of the system. Solutions to grow the economy with man-made infrastructure destroy the environment. Solutions to save just the environment by removing human beings living in forests or animal grazers in pastures to build renewable energy infrastructure destroys livelihoods. Solutions for increasing the productivity of agriculture by applying more chemicals and replacing farmers with machines have reduced the productivity of soils, and so more chemicals are required. Meanwhile, the farmers who are displaced are unable to find employment in manufacturing because simultaneously humans in factories are being replaced by robots to increase the productivity of factories. Let's pause in our rush to get things done and consider, first, how can we make the God of the economy serve society and nature and stop it from exploiting nature and human beings to feed the GDP? How can we get community ways of working which create good societies to replace factory ways of working which create efficient and large economies? A power shift is required to shift power from the top to common people. One, a shift from academic experts, the Brahmins of knowledge, to a shift from the powerful rulers on the top, call them the Kshatriyas, And 3, power from the wealthy people, the Vaishnavas, to the people being left further behind. Yes, it maps the caste system, and this is applicable in the way the world is being governed, even if we don't call it the Hindu caste system. In summary, we have 2 fundamental problems to solve. First, how to replace bad, unsystemic science with good system science. Second is how to shift power from the powerful on the top to common citizens at the bottom. So, friends, my colleagues here, my friends, what we must discuss as dispassionately as we can is what are the systemic forces that are preventing this shift of power, and how can these forces be overcome non-violently and more rapidly. Because if the power of ideas does not shift from the top to the bottom, and new ideas of how to realize the promise of the commons do not come from the bottom, the world is doomed. And these are the questions we should explore in our discussion today. So, sir, I'm going to begin with you to just freely let you have your say. What comes to your mind when I ask you this question? How can we get the power shift?
Yeah. I don't think there would be anybody here who would be disagreeing with you when you say that we need a bottom-up process for ensuring sustainable development and management, sustainable management of the common resources. But I would say you have to go to explicitly take into consideration 2 points. One, today local community has a constitutional governance structure, and that has got to be taken into the discussion. After the passage of 73rd, 74th constitutional amendment, there is this panchayat and municipalities at the local level, even in the tribal areas after Bazaar. Now, there is a wide variation in the effectiveness of local governments from state to state. But if the local community can really is integrated in a meaningful manner with the local government, that tremendously improves the effectiveness of managing the commons. Because then they would have the power, legal power, as well as resources. That's point number 1. The second one is, as you yourself stated, we live in a globalized world, global economy. And no local community can insulate itself from the global market forces by itself. One example for, say, the ocean resources. They have a long history of local community sustainably managing the fisheries resources. I don't want to go into details. Through community restricting the gears for fishing, the way the harvest is distributed within the community, or even the kind of restrictions on what fish to catch and what not to catch, and banning certain time periods and so on. Now with the open blue economy, how can community control it? A trawler from outside can enter their waters and fish, and they're powerless. And therefore, it would require a kind of protective umbrella of a national legislation or regional legislation, which would ensure the communities' so decisions are respected by everybody. It's not just with foreign trawlers I am speaking, but national trawlers. You see, okay, Kerala bans monsoon period ban. There is nothing to prevent a trawler from outside coming and trawling them. So these are two issues I think we'll have to very seriously consider. If time permits, I will refer to one of them, the local government. Later, fine, good.
You opened it up very well. Our subject was Bazaar, Sarkaar and Samaaj. And you pointed out that in Kerala, the Samaaj and the Sarkaar has become very close. Maybe historically in the way the institutions have been functioning, closer than they are in other states or other parts of the world. But as you said, when Bazaar has come in, global Bazaar, there is now confusion and corruption of local systems. है ना? तो ये तीन हैं, Bazaar, Sarkar और Samaaj. The problem in the world today is that we have separated the forces of the Bazaar from the forces of Samaaj. And the forces of the Bazaar, they're universal. Universally the same values, the same principles by which corporations are run. But Samaaj runs by its own values and principles everywhere. And Sarkar is now in the middle. It has to be, helping the community to get the benefit of the global bazaar, but at the same time not allowing the global bazaar to exploit the community. So the Sarkar has a really tough job. I'm going to turn to Mekhala there, because I've learned a lot from her. She's done, Mekhala, if I might just introduce you in my way a little bit. In agriculture communities, farming communities on the ground in India, and she spent a long time at the heart of it in Madhya Pradesh, and she told me about Bazaar. And I think of Bazaar as, these big markets of global markets, but there is a Bazaar operating, as she said. And we have to think of the Bazaar also as local. Yes? So let's connect the Bazaar, Sarkar, and Samaaj, but I'm leaving you to say what you want to say. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a real honor and a privilege to be here. I was just thinking as you said this, that we've turned bazaar into a term which is synonymous with market. And it's not. It actually initially symbolizes a marketplace, which is very much a locally situated, contextually situated place. It is also full of societal, political, and economic practices, which are quite located in human social relationships, right? And so one of the interesting things, the early 20th century, the large American multinational corporations who were getting into Indian agricultural markets were absolutely infuriated with the Indian bazaar, right? Because the Indian bazaar, they would say, what we want is channel command. And you can't get channel command unless you go through this bustling, busy, bazaari economy, which had hundis, which had artyas, which had traders, all people who we now consider to be noxious middlemen, but who were also playing a vital role in that system, also keeping up larger scale consolidated capital out. By the late 20th century and early 21st century, which is when I started doing my field work in 2008-9, I had large multinational corporations who maybe thought I was an anthropologist and therefore didn't understand economy, said to me, the problem with Indian agricultural markets is not too many barriers to entry. Hum kehte hain mandis become a monopoly, too many, we cannot enter. They said the problem is we don't have enough barriers to entry. What they meant, again, is that your bazaar allows small actors to pop up season after season. And this is a pain for large multinational corporations who want channel command. They want channel control. So 100 years, the Indian bazaar, and our artyas and our brokers, and our chopals and our dabbas, all the things we quite rightly have a problem with in different ways, have also kept out hyper-consolidation, right, of our markets. Our markets are still not hyper-consolidated in the way you'll see agricultural markets, say, in the United States, where a few large actors literally control everything from seed to plate. So sometimes, even when you don't have a vision for them, the bazaar stands out and does something. And I think one of the biggest challenges for India is how do we have a vision for this middle, which we have turned into middlemen and intermediaries, but we don't pay enough attention to the medium, the small scale, the enterprises that actually make up the Indian economy. When the farm law debate happened, everybody was talking about farmers and corporates. It was almost like that middle space of intermediation is simply to be taken away. But that actually is the way our markets, our economy, our systems have also evolved. And if we don't, and that's actually a very vital role that government plays, that the state plays. Initially, our mandis were created so that we knew that these are monopsonistic and oligopsonistic markets. By that you mean, bahut sare kisan hai, there will be in any local area 4-5 buyers. You needed to have well-regulated, publicly regulated markets so that you had that kind of competition in that space. Over the years, we've forgotten the logics of public regulation, why we needed them, and have come to this notion that the bazaar can function on its own, right? And that deregulation is the way forward. And deregulation of that kind, without public purpose, is actually re-regulation in favor of the large. So again, I think protective, you mentioned legislation, but it's not only law, but also the institutions that you need to build on the ground, whether they are mandis, whether they are hearts, whether they are a whole range of different types of organizations, public and collectives, that will do that work. I just wanted to take a minute to say this panel is Samaaj, Sarkaar or Bazaar, as if they are all equivalent. That Samaaj, Sarkaar and Bazaar have to be connected. But actually one of them, which is Samaaj, is the base of all of it. Both the Sarkaar and the Bazaar are social institutions. They are social arrangements that society at various points, rife with power relations, it's not like everybody had an equal say, create. And over time, we forget that they are social arrangements. We start thinking of them as having a force of their own. So the bazaar acts on people, but people created it. And one of the best ways, and including the state, right? How many times in India we say, "My Baap, Sarkar," right? But the turning around of the "My Baap, Sarkar," when I was first doing field work many years ago with the Bombay police, in Bombay policemen में बहुत सारे कवि होते हैं. There are a whole bunch of poetry writing policemen in the Bombay police. And I met one of them. He's very lyrical. They actually have poet-kavi sammelans, and they all meet together and they talk. And he was telling me about the police, and then he said, you know, I'll say it in English and in Hindi, but he said, you know, the police is the son, the state is the father. Right? Sarkar, Baap hai, it was Delhi, Bombay, so it was Baap. And the Samaaj is the Dada, right? Like the grandfather is society. So you get the police you deserve as a society, right? You created this whole thing, it's you. It's not us that turned around. And then I joked and I said, but sometimes you guys come and beat us all up. And then he said, well, that's the arrogance of youth. Right? Like, he is a poet. But he was basically thinking about the police, and this kinship metaphor is also very interesting. So we tend to forget that these are human social arrangements, that we have decided, not in a deliberative room like this, but through a whole range of actions over time. And then we call it a social contract, and it comes to kind of stabilize into something. But I think unless we focus on the moral foundations. And in my experience as an anthropologist, the average Indian citizen, all of us, are really good social theorists. This was not an exceptional case of an explanation of how something comes to be. People are constantly thinking politically, socially, morally, and reasoning about how these arrangements have come into place. And unless we create the forums where we can go into those, I think we will struggle. So I'll just sort of remind, I think, to start with that these are social arrangements.
Yes, but I want to pick that up, Mekhala. Bazaar, Sarkaar and Samaaj. We are now becoming very, very alert, all of us, hopefully. And the people that we are hearing from the ground, the Adivasis, the Zameen Vasis, they're reminding there's something called nature also. And so there's a fourth system that is missing. We're talking about economic systems, social systems, and the third one is the government systems. And then there's the natural systems. So the relationship between the social system and the natural system, and the economic system and the natural system. So this is why I come into the systems thinking part. There's a logic by which the natural system governs itself and it sustains itself. And we are now realizing that we have somehow prevented it from sustaining itself, and we are falling off the earth. We are falling off the earth. So in our models, when you talk of the model, and you raised it rightly, there's a logic by which the market works. And again, we split it as the stock market and the corporate market versus the market works. Similarly, society, there is family, it's society. It's a simpler explanation, understanding of society. Then we have sociology and big society, if I might put it. And then you need data and mapping and so on, but there's a reality over here too. And similarly on the environment side, and jumping to that side, and we come to the governance last, environment side, yeah, we do the climate change, big macro thing, how much climate in the air and so on, but I'm saying locally, the system is working locally. The complexity of the system is managed by it locally, and we are trying to manage the complexity by finding the data, and it doesn't work. The government is in the middle. It has to provide, as you say, the right to the police to punish the others, and so on. So the government has a problem. It needs to govern the whole thing and establish rules. At the same time, it has to, I'm not saying govern the local people, but provide them, like you say, the protection, which is where you made the point about the market outside, that they should be able to, integrate themselves amongst themselves and with their natural systems and their own bazaar systems, their local systems. So I'm reserving it for you, but before that I want to ask her, because I got to know Jahnvi when she was teaching at the Indian School of Development Management. And I found Jahnvi with you and Suparna, your colleague, this great listening ability to, you're sending your students into communities and asking them to come back and say, what did you observe? And some would observe social relationships much more. Others would observe sort of money, prices being exchanged, and so on. And bringing them back to begin to think of the whole system. That's what came to my mind after she spoke, but you say what you wish to.
Thank you. It's really wonderful to be here, and I thank Jagdish and the organizers to offer this opportunity to share something. And I must say, when he explained to me, he said, Samaaj, Sarkaar, Bazaar. So I said, "Aap mujhe kahan dekhte ho? In which of those three?" So he said, what he said was both liberation but also a challenge, because he said, आपको जो बोलना है आप बोल सकते हो. You go by what you have done in Anandi, you go by what you have done when you're at the philanthropy, you go by whatever you're doing now. And so that was good, but at the same time, then, how do you bring it all back in, 5-7 minutes or whatever. But I'll try. So what I have been trying to do is to kind of be more structured and not all over the place, because, systems thinking can also land up being extremely unwieldy and feeling getting lost. And so what in fact, I am teaching ISDM right now. My course is going on, and one of the things that I begin with there is the course is called Perspectives on Development, and what I begin is to say that who decided what is development? Where did this come from? And I talk about Arturo Escobar to them, where he gives a complete critique and says the third world was a creation of the ones who were in power after the World War II. And what did they do was to really unleash this notion that there is something called the first world nations and there is their conception of the economy. And in what I think what is interesting is that what I found interesting among the various things he said, and I'm going to read it, is he says there's a proliferation of development disciplines and sub-disciplines: development economics, agriculture sciences, health, nutrition, educational sciences, demography, so city and regional planning, and so on. So while these have had, you know, a decent amount of, say, contribution to our understanding, but I think, I mean, looking back and the kind of critiques that you presented, Mr. Myra, we know that this approach has actually unleashed a whole power imbalance and a lot of detrimental impact on the communities upon whom this notion of being third world was thrust. And then you had a whole bunch of people coming into our countries, I think way back then, to tell us how we should, you know, sort ourselves out. And I think that's been some of the problem which we kind of need to challenge, and I think Common Ground is perhaps beginning to bring that together in collaboration, as you know, in the beginning when of the introduction of the session today was also said. But 76 years down the line, when we had, after the World War, we had the Human Rights Declaration, we've had several conventions across many kinds of arenas, from women to environment to so on, and now we have the SDGs. And I think we're really not learning enough, I think, in terms of what is required. While we do have calls for systems thinking, and I'm hoping that what we have been calling in our analysis as structural barriers to you know, development, structural barriers to achieving social justice, is something that can be addressed through the systems thinking. But as I said, systems thinking can be quite unwieldy, and what I'm going to do is what I think may be possible ways forward, drawing from what I have done, what we've done at various points in the organizations that one has been a part of. I would say that begin with social movements. We need to reclaim, we need to go back and say what have the social movements been doing, because they are located in the raising the issues about injustice, about those who have been left behind. We have these new terms, but social movements through the 20th century, 21st century have been raising these issues. And I think as development practitioners, when we want to imagine what is the kind of world, what is the kind of system that we want, I think we need to perhaps, you know, figure out how to engage with them. Yes, there are issues of FCRA. Yes, there are challenges that, you know, how are you going to be seen? But I'm sure having conversations cannot be harmful. You may not be able to do financial transactions, but why can't we do non-financial ways of engagement with them and figuring it out? Because they are the ones who are listening to those on the ground and who are saying that things are not working for us. And so I feel that, you know, listening to these movements, I think, is something that we need to do. My social work training always told me that, you know, we need to interact, and we did interact. Our faculty who was in TIS at that time did point us. They themselves were very active. Today, of course, TIS is a very different very space. But through that, and my first job, which was Mahila Samakhya, a government program that was talking about empowerment, it taught me what I would say is the second thing that we need to do, is to create time and space. And my father used to laugh at me, used to say that, how can you create time and space? These are completely finite, you know, concepts. But Mahila Samakhya has gone ahead and done just that for 20 years for women of this country in many states. And I think what we used to do is to just say that let's find time for ourselves to talk to each other, figure out and find the space which was otherwise always limited to the home. And can we find a space outside the home for women? And we start kind of listening to what is it that they really want to do and how do they want to, you know, mobilize, and what is it that they want to change. Today we speak a lot about agency. You know, we speak about having women's agency. And while that's a concept that feminists have given, women's organizations, and, you know, we have a lot of that. But I am afraid we are getting extremely instrumental in talking about women's agency, because we are deciding I mean, the worst version of this instrumentalization is, of course, you say, oh, let's work with women because they will not agitate. They are docile, they will not challenge the supervisor because there's a male supervisor. But then there are the more subtle ones where we say that, okay, nurturing, they understand plants, they understand, and therefore, maybe they should do the drudgery-ridden work of, say, putting the nursery together, which means you have to fetch waters in summer season from very long distances. You have to actually do a lot of backbreaking sort of work and the least paid work. And so how do you start saying, not involving them in saying that I have the solution and oh, you've not been part of all of this, please come and be a part of it. And say, can we shift to say that what is it that they observe and think about how things should be doing, because they are experiencing it at multiple levels. And I think for this, coming to this particular work that I'm doing right now with ISST, where this organization has been, for the last 40 years, talking about measurement of women's work. Because we, Devki Jain and the founder and other economists, and we still have many economists who are working on how do you get measurement right. Because we're not able to measure what women are doing. A lot of it is unpaid, underpaid, not only care and domestic work, but in the productive work, there is a lot of work that women are doing, which is not counted for. There are some feminist economists who have given up and said, ki iska kuch nahi ho sakta, but there are many who have still continued to knock on the doors of the statisticians and say that, how do we change it? Just one last point. So I think we need to figure some of these things at the macro level, and then again coming back to a recent study we did with the pastoral communities, women in Himachal, where what the women are telling us is about, going back to relationships. The relationship that they have with a body in terms of what they define as a good body, a body that can work with animals and with children and many other tasks, but also with the nature. And the challenges they are facing because of sedentarization, the new economic development, where they are saying that, while we have been having a practice of collecting jadi booty, where we will always leave some behind for regeneration, because of now there is a whole trend towards the market saying that we need nature, organic, this, that. So you have a lot of other people from the neighboring communities who have no understanding, but identify the plant, will just take away everything and leave nothing for regeneration. And so how do you build this deep understanding where they are seeing the harmful effects of the bazaar, of the economy, and are still keen on, continuing to do some of the work that they are doing?
Okay, I think, Jahnvi, I'm wanting Dr. Isaac to come in, but just noting three things, because you have raised some questions which I think all of us who are wanting to change the ideas with which we govern ourselves to change. Three things. One, you've talked about women's work, right? How do we value it? The economy values things by money and price. Does society value women's work in that way? No. Think about it. So when you're trying to map the economy and the society, we've got a measurement problem, and money is given value in the economy, whereas in relationships, so the second concept is relationships versus transactions. In the economy, people interact with each other in transactions, and to make them fair, the money value must be the same. In a family and within a community, it's relationships, and you give and take different things. How do you value them? So I'm talking about ourselves as data management-based scientists, whether we are sociologists or economists. I think we've got to go back to some fundamentals about this. The circular economy, okay, is being talked about a lot, especially when you talk about nature. I mean, Anubandha, Ela Behn's marvelous book, the last short book that she wrote before she passed away, it talks about 100-mile communities. And what she's pointing out is that, there are boundaries within which a community can be feeling like a community. And of course, there are boundaries within which the natural system can be, behaving itself and managing itself. These boundaries not exactly matched. Like some river systems may be larger and the communities are smaller. Unfortunately, on top of that, we put political boundaries which are quite arbitrary. draw a straight line somewhere between Arabian Sea and into Kashmir, and my family finds that we thought we were 30 miles on this side, now we have to go 30 miles on that side and become refugees in a new country with a new political boundary. So in the governance of it, the government is charged and elected within a political boundary. But the boundaries of the local government also, the panchayat, are not contiguous completely with the natural boundaries, or even what people might feel. Those people, they live outside the panchayat boundary, but I exchange things with them. So this is my thought, but you say what you wanted to say, but I've just provoked further.
Yeah. Now, what should be your ideal in decentralizing government? The ideal you should strive for is that the kind of Chinese walls that exist between the government and civil society break down at the cutting edge. That same, the boundaries of the local government and boundaries of the community, they should merge. That's the ideal. See, how do you do that? To achieve that, you have to go beyond representative democracy and ensure various ways by which people can directly participate in the governance. Okay, the constitutional representative is there, but then there are the Gram Sabhas, which had to be active. But not just Gram Sabhas. You have to create as many microfora as possible. Say a project, it have a monitoring committee, it can have an implementation committee of people. You have a school, you have a parent-teacher association, you have a primary health center, you have hospital development committee. The challenge is to innovate as many microfora as possible so that people do directly participate. And when they do that meaningfully, then the boundaries of government, local government, and local community would merge with each other. You see. Now, this is the idea. Will it be achieved? Well, depends. But you can have a legal design and administrative design which permits this, so that wherever the citizens are conscious of their rights and you have representatives who hold up these ideals, these are achieved. That is to say, it won't be the same all over. There will be areas which will be performing exemplary, and perhaps some areas which will be lagging behind. And in this, I think women's agency is very, very important. In the experience of Kerala, the most resilient form of microfora in which people participate would be the women SHGs. We call them neighborhood committees. For a simple reason, we don't want to have any self-help group on the basis of caste or any other sectarian concern, including political party. But anybody in the neighborhood, whatever religion, caste, or political party you belong to, have the right to participate in the women committee, neighborhood group. And that has proved to be very resilient, a kind of platform in which local initiatives and higher trained initiatives converge. So I am very optimistic about that. But the challenge you put, in fact, that's the ideal.
Yeah, so I'm going to, we got the solution here from experience, world proven, thank you so much, which is the challenge, and he says, is to innovate as many microflora. I use the word flora deliberately because nature works like that. Thank you for noticing. Microflora, now you get it. Social systems, political governance systems that operate like nature system. In the nature, local flora, the tree and the water and the bees, they're all interacting like equals. There is no dominant one of them. Any one of them goes, they know the rest are also dead. So we want to create some governance flora in which people dialogue and listen to people not like themselves as equals. And together we say, what can we do together to make everyone right? Okay. Multiple. Also, as you rightly said, and she said earlier, we all belong to many communities. So just one, I can't be feeling that everything that I need is contained within this. So I will be participating, that's why you said, as many microflora, sorry, as so that's right. Very good. So that's the solution we got to get there. Now, please, let's allow people to ask you. You've been furthest. But quickly, but I want to allow some questions to maybe him, because he's got the solution, but to all of you.
Sure. But I just want to very quickly amplify what you said about multiple flora, because, you know, when SHG started doing well, whether it's a Mahila Samakhya Sangha, and my first field work before I got to the police was with Nari Adalats in Vadodara district, and it's an extraordinary program. But one of the things is that it immediately began, can we do health education through them? Can we through banking through them? Can we, as if it works, especially for the poor, they have to have a one-stop shop solution. And this move has actually become very popular in policy. Single portal, single window, one-stop shop. Also the other word, which actually, while we want to merge and break boundaries, we also want to have some good boundaries, right? You need to have some, like even all canal builders know, farmers will know, you have to channel some things and have some space and some lines, and women know boundaries are important. Not everything is to be left open, and there is. So one of the things I feel, the other word that we're using, one-stop shop is one, and the other is seamlessness. And actually seamlessness is the best way to give up your power. Seamless institutions, it's actually large-scale corporate capital loves seamlessness, right? Large governments love seamlessness, full control.
But you know, words, and I'm going to, I have been from the corporate world and helping companies to globalize and so on. Seamlessness implies no boundaries. What we are saying is actually you need to have some permeable boundaries. So that is within which you contain some identity, contain your natural system, but it's permeable, not hard close them, okay? It's not seamless. Boundarylessness was the theme of globalization, bad idea. Sorry. Okay. Questions, please? Any? Sudarshanji, you've been listening, and you are the Sutradhar here. And you can go first since he doesn't have a mic. But whoever has a mic, ये दोनों हैं. Mic दीजिए ना. ये लीजिए.
क्योंकि हमारे हिंदी प्रेक्षक यहाँ बहुत हैं और बहुत बढ़िया बात हो गई है। अरुण भाई ने तो अपनी बात हिंदी में रखी थी, ये बताया कि सरकार, समाज और बाज़ार जो है, ये तीनों चीज़ें जो हैं वो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण हैं, और सरकार और बाज़ार जो कर रहा है उससे समाज त्रस्त है। मेखला जी ने ये कहा कि मेरी समझ ये बन रही है, जितनी मेरी समझ है, बाज़ार और सरकार दोनों जो हैं वो समाज के नीचे हैं। समाज देखता है कि कौन सा बाज़ार और कौन सी सरकार चलेगी। थॉमस भाई, आप हिंदी नहीं समझते हैं, बट I mean you have already communicated to the English speaking and understanding world. I am just communicating to the Hindi world, saying that आप ये समझ लीजिए कि सरकार में जो कुछ हुआ है, जो 73 और 74 के जो संविधान में सुधार हुए हैं, उससे हमारे गांव के स्तर पर ग्राम सभा और ग्राम पंचायत को बहुत सारी ताकत मिली है, और समाज किस तरह से सरकार की इस ताकत से खुद मजबूत हो सकता है और एक सारी विकेंद्रित राजनीतिक प्रशासन की प्रक्रिया खड़ी कर सकता है, वो उनका मानना है। जाह्नवी ने ये कहा कि सरकार और समाज, सरकार और बाज़ार दोनों न माने तो जन आंदोलन जो है इसका उपाय है, और जन आंदोलन के अंदर जो है कई जगहों पर महिलाओं ने जो है वो अगर आगे आ जाती हैं तो बहुत सारी जगहें ऐसी हैं जहां महिलाएं समाज में ये परिवर्तन अच्छे से ला सकती हैं। कुल लब्बो लुबाब जो कहा गया है उसका ये है। अब मैं आपको ये बताऊं कि हो क्या रहा है। सरकार और बाजार जो है वो रहीम को नहीं पढ़े हैं, क्योंकि रहीम तो बहुत पहले हो गए। रहीम ने कहा, कह रहीम कैसे निभे बेर केर को संग, ये डोलत रस आपने इनके फाटत अंग। अब हो ये रहा है कि सरकार और बाजार जो है ये कंटीले बेर हैं और समाज जो है वो केले का झाड़ है। अब सरकार और बाजार अपनी तरह से हिलते हैं तो समाज के तो अंग फट जाते हैं ना भाई। तो कह गया है हमको पहले से करें, ये हम नहीं सोच रहे, ये हमारी अपनी सामाजिक समझ है। तो सवाल थॉमस भाई, द क्वेश्चन इज ऑल्सो फॉर यू दैट व्हेन सोसाइटी इज डोमिनेंट, it is the culture, and it is the culture which determines the nature of the state, it is the culture which determines the nature of the markets. ये see, that is how we different cultures have come up. ये बात एक थी। हमारे कल्चर में व्हाट इज अवर कल्चर? औरंगजेब ने राजा मानसिंह को अफगानिस्तान में लड़ाई करने के लिए भेजा, उसके साथ हिंदी सेना गई थी और अटक दरिया आ गया बीच में। तो सैनिकों ने कहा कि हम दरिया पार नहीं कर सकते, तो हमारे धर्म में नहीं लिखा है। तो राजा मानसिंह ने जो है वो लिखा कि मैं तो ठीक ठाक हूँ, मुझे प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, पर मेरे सैनिक नहीं जा रहे हैं। तो अकबर ने जो है एक दो वाक्य लिख के भेजे, कहा सबे भूमि गोपाल की, या में अटक कहाँ, जाके मन में अटक है सो ही अटक रहा। अब हमारी समझ जो है वो सबे भूमि गोपाल की है, वो इसीलिए है। अब मैं अंतिम बात पे आता हूं और आप लोगों से सवाल करता हूं। सी, द सेंट्रल क्वेश्चन इज, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट, वी आर मिसिंग समथिंग इन दिस डिस्कोर्स ऑफ ऑल द थ्री। वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट गवर्नमेंट और स्टेट, मार्केट एंड सोसाइटी। वी आर फॉरगेटिंग इंडिविजुअल। प्रॉब्लम जो है वो व्यक्ति, समष्टि और सृष्टि का है। आप सारा सॉल्यूशन जोर लगा रहे हैं कि बाजार और सरकार जो है वो समष्टि यानी सिस्टम्स पे काम करती है, इंडिविजुअल कहाँ है? और इंडिविजुअल की भूमिका इस संस्कृति में सांस्कृतिक भूमिका जो है वो आध्यात्मिक है।
Thank you.
So this is where I said that this is
the individual, the role of the individual, the place of the individual
exactly
in a complex system
right.
and in history.
Right.
Okay. But I'm going to let her ask a question also, and then we'll try. And I don't think a question as profound as that can be just answered, but one can engage in opening up the question.
My question is extremely practical, because I do feel that I have also been greatly involved with the SHGs and in the financial inclusion space, and I think that has been a brilliant idea which has actually caught up until they were also misused by state policy. But I think my question is, since the constitutional provisions give the role to the Panchayat Raj institutions, so you have an empowerment of the Gram Panchayats in terms of being able to make almost as law anything that is passed by the Gram Panchayat. And then there I would say that for the women who left some jadi booties there, and the other people who come from outside don't leave it there, or the global fishers or even the national trawlers who come there, if there are ability of the local institutions to actually decide, okay, this is, and that's where I bring back into, boundaries I think are necessary, and ensure that these spaces are for the local communities. How do we entwine the self-help groups with the Gram Panchayat institutions in terms of power and participation in decision making, to be really relate to the state and society and markets, which are, I agree with you, external institutions. And the individual, I feel, is located in that community, although that community is not homogeneous at all. It is very heterogeneous. And it is also beset by differences and, again, power captures. So I think this is something that I've been personally thinking of. How do we really make this meaningful ability for women's groups, whatever name you call them, to intertwine with the panchayat institutions and make sure that locally, whatever they need to led to a better balance with nature and not Anthropocene, interpretation of development. So I feel that is my question.
Very good. Yours, of course.
That's
yes.
very important question. I used a phrase, design of decentralization. So SHGs, they will require a legal framework within which they operate.
Can I just finish another question?
Related to this, SHG.
SSG, yeah, something to do with this.
Let me just finish this.
Okay. So you'll be answering, but he thinks that you could answer his question also.
Can I ask?
Yes.
Okay, it's for Brother Isaac only. I essentially am a village head man from Odisha. So I'd like to know from you, Gram Sabha, the village committee, that is the whole and soul of the 73rd Amendment and the Panchayat extension to settled area law. Whole of India I have travelled. I have not really seen a statutory way of constituting a Gram Sabha, notifying it, empowering it by law, and framing rules as to how a Gram Sabha must function. That I haven't said. I was told that you are pretty close to whatever has been suggested or whatever has been recommended by that Bhuria committee in Kerala. So I would like to know from you, how exactly have you constituted your Gram Sabha? What exactly is a Gram Sabha? And whether you have formulated rules for the functioning of it? And what are the statutory powers you have transferred to this fourth tier of government?
Thank
you, sir.
You must, because this is the profound question, but there's a session later. There's a session specifically on that subject today, isn't it? Later. The Gram Sabha and the parallels. So, but yours.
Yeah, and as some Vijayananda speak in that session, I understand he's the best person to learn from. We have been working together for the last 30 years on local governments in Kerala. Now, so we designed the SHG system in Kerala so that it is fully integrated to the local government. One, it's not federated above the local government. You don't have block level SHG or district level or state level, no. It stops with the... Second, it's the local government that sponsors it. But the SHG system is autonomous, independent of it. Its office bearers are elected formally, like a panchayat election, you see. And therefore, the panchayat has the right to look into its budget and give comments. Stops there. After that, it is left totally to autonomy of SHG. We have conceived SHG as a subsystem of Gram Sabha. I have experimented it in my constituency very successfully, but this has not become the normal practice. That SHGs meet before Gram Sabha, they discuss the agenda, and then a representative will speak. She has the right to speak in the Gram Sabha, what they have deliberated. Now, this is something that is being thought about. To make Gram Sabha effective, that the subsystems within the Gram Sabha, not only SHGs, but residents associations, clubs, libraries, they can meet an elected representative who will be speaking in Gram Sabha. For the simple reason, Gram Sabha in Kerala is huge. If everybody comes for Gram Sabha, you will require a football ground to have the Gram Sabha. So that's the way. So the design is very, very important to ensure that is organically linked to the local government. And I think that is a unique feature of the SHG system in Kerala. It is a part of larger democratization process of the governance in the. In fact, myself and Vijayanand and a person from NABARD, we were members of the committee. We had huge debates and discussions where we laid down the principles. We were very clear what we wanted. We wanted this to be part of the democratization process of Kerala. I think we'll discuss in the session. Definitely, I will also try to come there.
Thank you. I think time is running out, but if you have a quick question or a comment.
Yeah, I'm Vivekanandan. I'm working in the NGO for the last 3 decades. So SHG is modeled with the women group. It is one of the sustainable model. But some NGOs, they also promoted, say, water user groups, or some pastoralist groups, or some breeders groups, or traditional varieties. They're different, based on thematically, they come out with many groups. So after some time now, there is no public support. So NGO movement also nowadays, it is not very strong. So earlier, there was a public institution like CAPAT was there under Minister of Rural Development. So now it is almost, we could not find out. So now only CSR fund is coming. So some institutions to recognize, to see that the NGO movement, initially they are building up institutions like, say, fisheries groups or whatever, or natural resources groups, and public institutions should support. Then it will lobby with our Grama Sabhas. Then the policies will come and the sustainable model, we can very well develop. That is my point.
Would you like to answer that? Because I have a thought on that. Or would you like to? Yeah, okay. She has a. Jahnvi, you go ahead.
It's not exactly on this, but I think the problem is of proliferation also that we kind of need to look at. And I believe that, what I'm hearing Dr. Isaac saying is that it's part of that relational building, that, what is the relationship between different institutions that we are creating. And I think we need to think of the relation of the individual with these collectives. I think that's important. But the feminist movement has also constantly said that you need to address power. And for me, the way you address power in systems is through setting up of accountabilities. So what would be interesting to see and unpack is that whether it is the SHGs and the Panchayati Raj system, how are accountabilities practiced actually? And who is accountable to whom? And that's where I think a lot of power can become undone.
I think I'm just yourself. You want to say something? Quick, because we've got to conclude. Yeah, go ahead.
Just a brief response.
Yes.
See, participation of not only individual citizens, but civil society organizations and a mass organization of people in the local governance system is very, very important. And therefore, a conscious attempt was made to ensure as much space as possible for interested organizations, civil society organizations to participate in the local planning process on the campaign. And some of the organizations, I can name a dozen of them, important ones in Kerala, were fully active in the whole campaign to decentralize the governance system in Kerala. And last sentence, we paid much importance to professional bodies and professional people to get engaged. We had something what is called voluntary technical call, that any professional could volunteer and they would be given special support to involve themselves in the local planning and setting up of micro enterprises, helping the SHGs and so on. And their last sentence, see, 22 chiefs engineers of Kerala, 3 vice chancellors of Kerala, 1 railway board chairman from Kerala, 1 major general from Kerala. They were members of the VTC working in the panchayats. As kind of professional caliber that you can think of only at the center or state level, was made available at the local level. Yes, so very important.
Please.
I'll just amplify actually, because what you're saying is so inspiring, and I think Kerala gives you a sense of possibility. But we have so much diversity. Each state also has to figure out and innovate what will work for each of these contexts. But I think one of the most important things is our public institutions. I think for a very long time they did very poorly. So we created them with a great amount of enthusiasm, imagination, and hope. And over the years, many of them became they were not given enough either support, technical assistance, and other things, and they started hollowing out. Today, we have come to a point where we are rationalizing them without understanding the purpose that they were playing. They are beginning to look just like they're a pain, they're unnecessary. So we are losing in this moment many public organizations whose original purpose we don't even remember. Right? And it is not that they were doing phenomenal work. They were also struggling. The organizations you also mentioned in the world, we would discuss them as, problems, places of patronage. Everybody, again, the My Baap story, right? Like everybody had their little zone. So I think we have lost a lot of strong institutions over the last 50 years because we haven't given them that kind of accountability. We haven't actually held them to their purpose, but also supported them to meet their purpose. I mean, Mahila Samakya is an extraordinary example of over 30 years to protect an institution like that and not let it hollow out. So I think this is a moment where we need to renew our understanding of public purpose of these organizations and reinvest in them so that we don't lose a whole range of them, which is very likely, and it's already happening because there's so much rationalization.
I think, Mekhala, we come to what you said earlier, and Jahnvi, you said it is about women, it is about movements, it's about shifting power. And we are saying that the powers are presently entrenched in certain concepts of institutions, whether they are of the Sarkaar or they are of the Bazaar, the officially version which is allowed to operate the formal institutions, and so also the bad institutions in Samaaj. And we want change. Change is not brought about by writing a constitution of another institution, which will be all formed with the same ideas, and the people in power will define that institution also to preserve the present order. So, jo aapne kaha, it's the movements, right? The movements. And what is the movements? I think you said when you talk about democracy, it is about people who are very different to each other, who are willing to listen to other points of view. Also, we realize that this direct democracy jo chahte hain Europe mein bhi, ki now we got internet vagera, we can have another Brexit like, you'll make a mess. Because people have different views on different subjects. So you can't on one issue say let's have a vote directly. So it's the middle space in democracy which is missing. There is a public sphere which has been opened up greatly. That's the idea of individual should say what he feels like and he's empowered to say it. And you got these institutions at top, poor chaps, who are supposed to find out what matters to everybody and produce order. So in between, there's no digestion. The digestion takes place in forums like this. And I think these four organizations, all of whose purpose is to not be in charge, but to enable these conversations to happen. And I'm saying you are enabling the conversations to happen, which include the voices of the people whose ideas we should take and who are being left behind. We do have many World Economic Forums, United Nations conferences too, but they are not going to produce the change. We will now ask for time.
May I ask one question?
Yes, I want to know, Jagdish, how much time have we got? But this is what it's supposed to be now. Come on.
Thank you, sir. We are discussing about Sarkaar, Samaaj and Bazaar. So in all the places, women and weaker section are voiceless. Wherever see. Anyhow, Bazaar is ruling our, in the name of democracy, Bazaar is ruling us. When we are discussing about self-help groups and livelihood, n number of products are producing by the women, but there is no market. We have a big market. In our villages, American products are selling, but in our own villages, our products are not able to sell it. How we may take up market to our control, whether is it possible to make an alternative market, alternative economy. All our women group can make a different, our self-help to mutual help. We started one experiment, mutual market, self-help to mutual help, like that village level, panchayat level, they have their own bazaar. There all the producers will come. Each and every family is spending at least 2,000 to 3,000 per month for their consumption. All that has to be purchased by there only. Then the village economy will also grow, it will accumulate. Like that, is it possible to promote and build such alternative economy, alternative market?
I think, I'm going to be helping the whole conversation to say this. कि आपने कहा, you said that the Gram Sabha has to deal with many, many issues, and you can't have all of it in one forum. So you got these sub-forums, and so this whole 3 days is a Gram Sabha. And there are many forums, and this subject, for example, is being discussed in 2 or 3 different versions. Markets. It's being discussed. If you look at the agenda, it's really very rich. So I'm just suggesting that let us not be the chaps of the Constitution, the Supreme Court, and saying we'll give you the decision. There are places to in all this. So my request is only this, that we are now raised up. I'm glad. I hope you have provided yourselves, Jagdish and your colleagues, places for these conversations. I notice them. Whenever people are asking a question, I said, I would rather go there because they will be the people who are more experts in that, and space will be there. So please look for that, I was going to say. And with that, I was just, with your permission then, and I know that some people are going to get upset because they said, we do want to participate. But the point is to have a participation which is satisfactory and produces some outcomes also. Yeah. So can we stop here? Yes?
Sir, may I have a last question, sir?
No, I think now this is where it comes to, the time boundary bhi ho jati hai phir. No, you can't. Nobody can. Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
Say that when we are thinking about the market, what we've been calling market or bazaar, we aren't getting into the details, right? So there is production, there is exchange, there is distribution, there is consumption. And what we do when we say bazaar, we are referring to all of these different systems. There's systems of production, exchange, distribution, and consumption. And in your village, there will be some overlap in each of these, but we have to then still work on different scales and take both production and consumption extremely seriously when we think about these elements, right? And I think this is something that gets missed a little bit.
I think we're at the right place. They say that to satisfy everybody is impossible. And the right democratic thing is that everybody is dissatisfied. That is a good democratic place to end. I think everyone's dissatisfied. So, thank you. Huh? Yes, mutiny. Thank you very much. Thank you.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद इस प्लेनरी के सभी वक्ताओं को सरलता से सवालों के जवाब देने के लिए, और मायरा जी को इन सब विचारों को इतने अच्छे से सूत्रों से बांधने के लिए। हमारे श्रोताओं का भी शुक्रिया बेहतरीन सवाल पूछने के लिए, और शुक्रिया सुदर्शन अयंगर सर का संक्षेप में हिंदी में अनुवाद करने के लिए भी। सुदर्शन अयंगर जी से अनुरोध है कि वो कृपया मंच पे सभी वक्ताओं को सम्मानित करें।
Thank you again to all the panelists. We have an exciting day ahead of us. If everyone can just kindly stay back for a minute, we would like to give an overview of what's in store. There are 12 breakout sessions lined up for the day. They will be happening simultaneously in sets of 3. Broadly, the themes are going to be on collaborative approaches and platforms on topics such as the implementation of the FRA, strengthening NTFP value chains, as well as envisaging the role of multi-actor platforms. We will also explore on the means and methods to enhance local governance, such as through strengthening the custodianships of Panchayat, leveraging the Gramdan Act, as well as the role of data and technology in the governance of commons. We will also explore topics related to environmental stewardship and ecosystem management, such as community stewardship, indigenous knowledge, pathways to protect freshwater ecosystems, landscapes and farming system interactions, as well as extensive livestock systems. Please do review the agenda in detail, which is available on the website. If you run into any issues, please do contact any of the volunteers who are wearing a yellow lanyard.
आज के दिन हमारे इसके आगे 12 पैनल सेशंस हैं जो 3-3 के सेट्स में डिवाइडेड हैं। वो अलग अलग कमरों में चलेंगे। आपसे अनुरोध है कि ज़्यादा जानकारी के लिए कृपया वेबसाइट पे एजेंडा चेक करें या पीले फीते वाले लोगों से संपर्क करें। अभी हम सब कॉफ़ी और चाय ब्रेक के लिए प्रस्थान कर सकते हैं।
थैंक यू।